Section 42 of The Interpretation of Dreams. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read for you by Chiquito Crasto. The Interpretation of Dreams by Sigmund Freud. Translated by A. Brill. Section 42. The Wish Fulfillment. Part 1. The dream of the burning child cited above affords us a welcome opportunity for appreciating the difficulties confronting the theory of wish fulfillment. That a dream should be nothing but a wish fulfillment must undoubtedly seem strange to us all, and not only because of the contradiction offered by the anxiety dream. Once our first analyses had given us the enlightenment that meaning and psychic value are concealed behind our dreams, we could hardly have expected so unitary a determination of this meaning. According to the correct but summary definition of Aristotle, the dream is a continuation of thinking in sleep. Now, if during the day our thoughts perform such a diversity of psychic acts, judgments, conclusions, to answering of objections, expectations, intentions, etc., why should they be forced at night to confine themselves to the production of wishes only? Are there not, on the contrary, many dreams that present an altogether different psychic act in dream form, for example, anxious care? And is not the father's unusually transparent dream of the burning child such a dream? From the gleam of light that falls upon his eyes while he is asleep, the father draws the apprehensive conclusion that a candle has fallen over and may be burning the body. He transforms this conclusion into a dream by embodying it in an obvious situation enacted in the present tense. What part is played in this dream by the wish fulfillment? And how can we possibly mistake the predominance of the thought continued from the waking state or evoked by the new sensory impression? All these considerations are justified, and force us to look more closely into the role of the wish fulfillment in dreams, and the significance of the waking thoughts continued in sleep. It is precisely the wish fulfillment that has already caused us to divide all dreams into two groups. We have found dreams that were plainly wish fulfillments, and others in which the wish fulfillment was unrecognizable and was often concealed by every available means. In this latter class of dreams we recognize the influence of the dream censorship. The undisguised wish dreams were found chiefly in children. Short, frank wish dreams seemed, I purposely emphasize this word, to occur also in adults. We may now ask whence in each case does the wish that is realized in the dream originate? But to what opposition or to what diversity do we relate this whence? I think to the opposition between conscious daily life and an unconscious psychic activity which is able to make itself perceptible only at night. I thus find a threefold possibility for the origin of a wish. Firstly, it may have been excited during the day, and owing to external circumstances may have remained unsatisfied. There is thus left for the night an acknowledged and unsatisfied wish. Secondly, it may have emerged during the day, only to be rejected. There is thus left for the night an unsatisfied but suppressed wish. Thirdly, it may have no relation to daily life, but may belong to those wishes which awake only at night out of the suppressed material in us. If we turn to our scheme of the psychic apparatus, we can localize a wish of the first order in the system PCs. We may assume that a wish of the second order has been forced back from the PC's system into the UC's system, where alone, if anywhere, can it maintain itself. As for the wish impulse of the third order, we believe that it is wholly incapable of leaving the UC's system. Now have the wishes arisen from these different sources the same value for the dream, the same power to incite a dream? On surveying the dreams at our disposal with a view to answering this question, we are at once moved to add as a fourth source of the dream wish the actual wish impetus which arises during the night, for example, the stimulus of thirst and sexual desire. It then seems to us probable that the source of the dream wish does not affect its capacity to incite a dream. I have in mind the dream of the child who continued the voyage that had been interrupted during the day, and the other children's dreams cited in the same chapter. They are explained by an unfulfilled but unsuppressed wish of the daytime. That wishes suppressed during the day assert themselves in dreams is shown by a great many examples. I will mention a very simple dream of this kind. A rather sarcastic lady, whose younger friend had become engaged to be married, is asked in the daytime by her acquaintance whether she knows her friend's fiancé and what she thinks of him. She replies with unqualified praise, imposing silence on her own judgment, although she would have liked to tell the truth, namely, that he is a commonplace fellow, one meets such by the dozen. Dutzendmensch. The following night she dreams that the same question is put to her, and that she replies with a formula. In case of subsequent orders, it will suffice to mention the reference number. Finally, as a result of numerous analyses, we find that the wish in all dreams that have been subject to a distortion has its origin in the unconscious and could not become perceptible by day. At first sight, then, it seems that in respect of dream formation all wishes are of equal value and equal power. I cannot prove here that it is not really the true state of affairs, but I am strongly inclined to assume a stricter determination of the dream wish. Children's dreams leave us in no doubt that a wish unfulfilled during the day may instigate a dream. But we must not forget that this is after all the wish of a child, that it is a wish impulse of the strength peculiar to childhood. I very much doubt whether a wish unfulfilled in the daytime would suffice to create a dream in an adult. It would rather seem that, as we learn to control our instinctual life by intellection, we more and more renounce as unprofitable the formation or retention of such intense wishes as are natural to childhood. In this, indeed, there may be individual variations. Some retain the infantile type of the psychic processes longer than others, just as we find such differences in the gradual decline of the originally vivid visual imagination. In general, however, I am of the opinion that unfulfilled wishes of the day are insufficient to produce a dream in adults. I will readily admit that the wish impulses originating in consciousness contribute to the instigation of dreams, but they probably do no more. The dream would not occur if the preconscious wish were not reinforced from another source. That source is the unconscious. I believe that the conscious wish becomes effective in exciting a dream only when it succeeds in arousing a similar unconscious wish which reinforces it. From the indications obtained in the psychoanalysis of the neuroses, I believe that these unconscious wishes are always active and ready to express themselves whenever they find an opportunity of allying themselves with an impulse from consciousness and transferring their own great intensity to the lesser intensity of the latter. It must, therefore, seem that the conscious wish alone has been realized in the dream, but a slight peculiarity in the form of the dream will put us on the track of the powerful ally from the unconscious. These ever active and, as it were, immortal wishes of our unconscious recall the legendary Titans, who, from time immemorial, have been buried under the mountains which were once hurled upon them by the victorious gods, and even now quiver from time to time at the convulsions of their mighty limbs. These wishes existing in repression are themselves of infantile origin, as we learn from the psychological investigation of the neuroses. Let me therefore set aside the view previously expressed, that it matters little whence the dream wish originates, and replace it by another, namely, the wish manifested in the dream must be an infantile wish. In the adult it originates in the uses, while in the child, in whom no division and censorship exist as yet between the PCs and UCs, or in whom these are only in process of formation, it is an unfulfilled and unrepressed wish from the waking state. I am aware that this conception cannot be generally demonstrated, but I maintain that it can often be demonstrated even where one would have not suspected it, and that it cannot be generally refuted. They share this character of indestructibility with all other psychic acts that are really unconscious, that is, with psychic acts belonging solely to the system UCs. These paths are opened once and for all. They never fall into disease. They conduct the excitation process to discharge as often as they are charged again with unconscious excitation. To speak metaphorically, they suffer no other form of annihilation than did the shades of the lower regions in the Odyssey, who awoke to new life the moment they drank blood. The processes depending on the preconscious system are destructible in quite another sense. The psychotherapy of the neuroses is based on this difference. In dream formation, the wish impulses that are left over from the conscious waking life are, therefore, to be relegated to the background. I cannot admit that they play any part except that attributed to the material of actual sensations during sleep in relation to the dream content. If I now take into account those other psychic instigations left over from the waking life of the day which are not wishes, I shall merely be adhering to the course mapped out for me by this line of thought. We may succeed in provisionally disposing of the energetic cathexis of our waking thoughts by deciding to go to sleep. He is a good sleeper who can do this. Napoleon I is reputed to have been a model of this kind, but we do not always succeed in doing it, or in doing it completely. Unsolved problems, harassing cares, overwhelming impressions continue the activity of our thought even during sleep, maintaining psychic processes in the system which we have termed the preconscious. The thought impulses continued into sleep may be divided into the following groups: 1. Those which have not been completed during the day, owing to some accidental cause. 2. Those which have been left uncompleted because our mental parts have failed us, that is, unsolved problems. 3. Those which have been turned back and suppressed during the day. This is reinforced by a powerful fourth group: those which have been excited in our UCs during the day by the working of the PCs, and, finally, we may add a fifth consisting of 5. The indifferent impressions of the day, which have therefore been left unsettled. We do not underrate the psychic intensities introduced into sleep by these residues of the day's waking life, especially those emanating from the group of the unsolved issues. It is certain that these excitations continue to strive for expression during the day, and we may assume with equal certainty that the state of sleep renders impossible the usual continuance of the process of excitation in the preconscious and its termination in becoming conscious. In so far as we have become conscious of our mental processes in the ordinary way, even during the night, to the extent we are simply not asleep. I cannot say what change is produced in the PC system by the state of sleep, but there is no doubt that the psychological characteristics of sleep are to be sought mainly in the cathetic changes occurring just in this system which dominates, moreover, the approach to motility paralyzed during sleep. On the other hand, I have found nothing in the psychology of dreams to warrant the assumption that sleep produces any but secondary changes in the conditions of the UC system. Hence, for the nocturnal excitations in the PCs, there remains no other path than that taken by the wish excitations from the UCs. They must seek reinforcement from the UCs, and follow the detours of the unconscious excitations. But what is the relation of the preconscious day residues to the dream? There is no doubt that they penetrate abundantly into the dream, that they utilize the dream content to obtrude themselves upon consciousness even during the night. Indeed, they sometimes even dominate the dream content and impel it to continue the work of the day. It is also certain that the day residues may just as well have any other character as that of wishes, but it is highly instructive, and for the theory of wish fulfillment, of quite decisive importance to see what conditions they must comply with in order to be received into the dream. Let us pick out one of the dreams cited above. For example, the dream in which my friend Otto seems to show the symptoms of Basedow's disease. Chapter 5d. Otto's appearance gave me some concern during the day, and this worry, like everything else relating to him, greatly affected me. I may assume that this concern followed me into sleep. I was probably bent on finding out what was the matter with him. During the night my concern found expression in the dream which I have recorded. Not only was its content senseless, but it failed to show any wish fulfillment. But I began to search for the source of this incongruous expression of the solicitude felt during the day, and analysis revealed a connection. I identified my friend Otto with a certain Baron L., and myself with a Professor R. There was only one explanation of my being impelled to select just this substitute for the day thought. I must always have been ready in the UCs to identify myself with Professor R., as this meant the realization of one of the immortal infantile wishes, viz., the wish to become great. Repulsive ideas respecting my friend, ideas that would certainly have been repudiated in waking state, took advantage of the opportunity to creep into the dream. But the worry of the day had likewise found some sort of expression by means of a substitute in the dream content. The day thought, which was in itself not a wish, but on the contrary a worry, had in some way to find a connection with some infantile wish, now unconscious and suppressed, which then allowed it, duly dressed up, to arise for consciousness. The more domineering the worry, the more forced could be the connection to be established. Between the content of the wish and that of the worry there need be no connection, nor was there one in our example. It would perhaps be appropriate, in dealing with this problem, to inquire how a dream behaves when material is offered to it in the dream thoughts which flatly opposes a wish fulfillment, such as justified worries, painful reflections, and distressing realizations. The many possible results may be classified as follows: a. The dream work succeeds in replacing all painful ideas by contrary ideas, and suppressing the painful effect belonging to them. This then results in a pure and simple satisfaction dream, a palpable wish fulfillment, concerning which there is nothing more to be said. B. The painful ideas find their way into the manifest dream content, more or less modified, but nevertheless quite recognizable. This is the case which raises doubts about the wish theory of dreams, and thus calls for further investigation. Such dreams with a painful content may either be indifferent in feeling, or they may convey the whole painful effect which the ideas contained in them seem to justify, or they may even lead to the development of anxiety to the point of waking. Analysis then shows that even these painful dreams are wish fulfillments. An unconscious and repressed wish, whose fulfillment could not be felt as painful by the dreamer's ego, has seized the opportunity offered by the continued cathexis of painful day residues, has lent them its support, and has thus made them capable of being dreamed. But whereas in case A, the unconscious wish coincided with the conscious one, in case B, the discord between the unconscious and the conscious, the repressed material and the ego is revealed, and the situation in the fairy tale of the three wishes which the fairy offers to the married couple is realized. The gratification in respect of the fulfillment of the repressed wish may prove to be so great that it balances the painful effects adhering to the day residues. The dream is then indifferent in its affective tone, although it is on the one hand the fulfillment of a wish, and on the other the fulfillment of a fear. Or it may happen that the sleeper's ego plays an even more extensive part in the dream formation, that it reacts with violent resentment to the accomplished satisfaction of the repressed wish, and even goes so far as to make an end of the dream by means of anxiety. It is thus not difficult to recognize that dreams of pain and anxiety are, in accordance with our theory, just as much wish fulfillments as are the straightforward dreams of gratification. Painful dreams may also be punishment dreams. It must be admitted that the recognition of these dreams adds something that is, in a certain sense, new to the theory of dreams. What is fulfilled by them is once more an unconscious wish, the wish for the punishment of the dreamer for a repressed, prohibited wish impulse. To this extent these dreams comply with the requirement here laid down, that the motive power behind the dream formation must be furnished by a wish belonging to the unconscious. But a finer psychological dissection allows us to recognize the difference between this and the other wish dreams. In the dreams of the group B, the unconscious dream-forming wish belonged to the repressed material. In the punishment dreams it is likewise an unconscious wish, but one which we must attribute not to the repressed material, but to the ego. Punishment dreams point therefore to the possibility of a still more extensive participation of the ego in dream formation. The mechanism of dream formation becomes, indeed, in every way more transparent if in place of the antithesis conscious and unconscious we put the antithesis ego and repressed. This, however, cannot be done without taking into account what happens in the psychoneuroses, and for this reason it has not been done in this book. Here I need only remark that the occurrence of punishment dreams is not generally subject to the presence of painful day residues. They originate, indeed, more readily if the contrary is true, if the thoughts which are day residues are of a gratifying nature, but express illicit gratifications. Of these thoughts nothing, then, finds its way into the manifest dream except their contrary, just as was the case in the dreams of group A. Thus it would be the essential characteristic of punishment dreams that in them it is not the unconscious wish from the repressed material, from the system usees, that is responsible for dream formation, but the punitive wish reacting against it, a wish pertaining to the ego, even though it is unconscious, that is, preconscious. I will elucidate some of the foregoing observations by means of a dream of my own, and above all, I will try to show how the dream work deals with a day residue involving painful expectation. Indistinct beginning. I tell my wife that I have some news for her, something very special. She becomes frightened and does not wish to hear it. I assure her that, on the contrary, it is something which will please her greatly, and I begin to tell her that our son's officers' corps has sent a sum of money, 5,000, something about honorable mention, distribution. At the same time I have gone with her into a sitting room, like a store room, in order to fetch something from it. Suddenly I see my son appear. He is not in uniform, but rather in a tight-fitting sports suit, like a seal, with a small cap. He climbs onto a basket which stands to one side near a chest, in order to put something on this chest. I address him. No answer. It seems to me that his face or forehead is bandaged. He arranges something in his mouth, pushing something into it. Also his hair shows a glint of grey. I reflect. Can he be so exhausted? And has he false teeth? Before I can address him again, I awake without anxiety, but with palpitations. My clock points to 2:30 a.m. To give a full analysis is once more impossible. I shall therefore confine myself to emphasizing some decisive points. Painful expectations of the day had given occasion for this dream. Once again, there had been no news for over a week from my son, who was fighting at the front. It is easy to see that in the dream content, the conviction that he has been killed or wounded finds expression. At the beginning of the dream one can observe an energetic effort to replace the painful thoughts by their contrary. I have to impart something very pleasing, something about sending money, honorable mention, and distribution. The sum of money originates in a gratifying incident of my medical practice. It is therefore trying to lead the dream away altogether from its theme. But this effort fails. The boy's mother has a presentiment of something terrible, and does not wish to listen. The disguises are too thin, the reference to the material to be suppressed shows through everywhere. If my son is killed, then his comrades will send back his property. I shall have to distribute whatever he has left among his sisters, brothers, and other people. Honorable mention is frequently awarded to an officer after he has died the hero's death. The dream thus strives to give direct expression to what it at first wished to deny, whilst at the same time the wish-fulfilling tendency reveals itself by distortion. The change of locality in the dream is no doubt to be understood as threshold symbolism, in line with Silberer's view. We have indeed no idea what lends it the requisite motive power, but my son does not appear as failing on the field of battle, but climbing. He was in fact a daring mountaineer. He is not in uniform, but in a sports suit. That is, the place of the fatality now dreaded has been taken by an accident which happened to him at one time when he was ski running, when he fell and fractured his thigh. But the nature of his costume, which makes him look like a seal, recalls immediately a younger person, our comical little grandson. The grey hair recalls his father, our son-in-law, who has had a bad time in the war. What does this signify? But let us leave this. The locality, a pantry, the chest from which he wants to take something, in the dream to put something on it, are unmistakable allusions to an accident of my own, brought upon myself when I was between 2 and 3 years of age. I climbed on a footstool in the pantry in order to get something nice which was on a chest or table. The footstool tumbled over, and its edge struck me behind the lower jaw. I might very well have knocked all my teeth out. At this point an admonition presents itself. It serves you right, like a hostile impulse against the valiant warrior. A profounder analysis enables me to detect the hidden impulse which would be able to find satisfaction in the dreaded mishap to my son. It is the envy of youth which the elderly man believes that he has thoroughly stifled in actual life. There is no mistaking the fact that it was the very intensity of the painful apprehension lest such a misfortune should really happen that searched out for its alleviation such a repressed wish-fulfillment. I can now clearly define what the unconscious wish means for the dream. I will admit that there is a whole class of dreams in which the incitement originates mainly or even exclusively from the residues of the day, and returning to the dream about my friend Otto, I believe that even my desire to become at last a professor extraordinarius would have allowed me to sleep in peace that night, had not the day's concern for my friend's health continued active. But this worry alone would not have produced a dream. The motive power needed by the dream had to be contributed by a wish, and it was the business of my concern to find such a wish for itself as the motive power of the dream. To put it figuratively, it is quite possible that a day thought plays the part of the entrepreneur in the dream, but the entrepreneur, who, as we say, has the idea and feels impelled to realize it, can do nothing without capital. He needs a capitalist who will defray the expense, and this capitalist, who contributes the psychic expenditure for the dream, is invariably and indisputably, whatever the nature of the waking thoughts, a wish from the unconscious. In other cases the capitalist himself is the entrepreneur. This, indeed, seems to be the more usual case. An unconscious wish is excited by the day's work, and this now creates the dream. And the dream processes provide a parallel for all the other possibilities of the economic relationship here used as an illustration. Thus the entrepreneur may himself contribute a little of the capital, or several entrepreneurs may seek the aid of the same capitalist, or several capitalists may jointly supply the capital required by the entrepreneurs. Thus there are dreams sustained by more than one dream wish, and many similar variations, which may be readily imagined, and which are of no further interest to us. What is still lacking to our discussion of the dream wish we shall only be able to complete later on. The tertium comparationis in the analogies here employed the quantitative element of which an allotted amount is placed at the free disposal of the dream, admits of a still closer application to the elucidation of the dream structure. As shown in Chapter 6b, we can recognize in most dreams a center supplied with a special sensory intensity. This is, as a rule, the direct representation of the wish fulfillment, for, if we reverse the displacements of the dream work, we find that the psychic intensity of the elements in the dream thoughts is replaced by the sensory intensity of the elements in the dream content. The elements in the neighborhood of the wish fulfillment have often nothing to do with its meaning, but prove to be the offshoots of painful thoughts which are opposed to the wish. But owing to their connection with the central element, often artificially established, they secure so large a share of its intensity as to become capable of representation. Thus the representative energy of the wish fulfillment diffuses itself over a certain sphere of association within which all elements are raised to representation, including even those that are in themselves without resources. In dreams containing several dynamic wishes, we can easily separate and delimit the spheres of the individual wish fulfillments, and we shall find that the gaps in the dream are often of the nature of boundary zones. Although the foregoing remarks have restricted the significance of the day residues for the dream, they are none the less deserving of some further attention, for they must be a necessary ingredient in dream formation, inasmuch as experience reveals the surprising fact that every dream shows in its content a connection with a recent waking impression, often of the most indifferent kind. So far we have failed to understand the necessity for this addition to the dream mixture. Chapter 5a. This necessity becomes apparent only when we bear in mind the part played by the unconscious wish and seek further information in the psychology of the neuroses. We shall then learn that an unconscious idea, as such, is quite incapable of entering into the preconscious, and that it can exert an influence there only by establishing touch with a harmless idea already belonging to the preconscious, to which it transfers its intensity, and by which it allows itself to be screened. This is the fact of transference, which furnishes the explanation of so many surprising occurrences in the psychic life of neurotics. The transference may leave the idea from the preconscious unaltered, though the latter will thus acquire an unmerited intensity, or it may force upon this some modification derived from the content of the transferred idea. I trust the reader will pardon my fondness for comparisons with daily life, but I feel tempted to say that the situation for the repressed idea is like that of the American dentist in Austria, who may not carry on his practice unless he can get a duly installed doctor of medicine to serve him as a signboard and legal cover. Further, just as it is not exactly the busiest physician who forms such alliances with dental practitioners, so in the psychic life the choice as regards covers for the repressed ideas does not fall upon such preconscious or conscious ideas as have themselves attracted enough of the attention active in the preconscious. The unconscious prefers to entangle with its connections either those impressions and ideas of the preconscious which have remained unnoticed as being indifferent, or those which have immediately had attention withdrawn from them again by rejection. It is a well-known proposition of the theory of associations, confirmed by all experience, that ideas which have formed a very intimate connection in one direction assume a negative type of attitude towards whole groups of new connections. I have even attempted at one time to base a theory of hysterical paralysis on this principle. If we assume that the same need of transference on the part of the repressed ideas, of which we have become aware through the analysis of neurosis, makes itself felt in the dreams also, we can at once explain two of the problems of the dream, namely, that every dream analysis reveals an interweaving of a recent impression, and that this recent element is often of the most indifferent character. We may add what we have already learned elsewhere, that the dream why these recent and indifferent elements so frequently find their way into the dream content as substitutes for the very oldest elements of the dream thoughts is that they have the least to fear from the resisting censorship. But while this freedom from censorship remains only the preference shown to the trivial elements, the constant presence of recent elements points to the necessity for transference. Both groups of impressions satisfy the demand of the repressed ideas for material still free from associations, the indifferent ones because they have offered no occasion for extensive associations, and the recent ones because they have not had sufficient time to form such associations. We thus see that the day residues, among which we may now include the indifferent impressions, not only borrow something from the uses when they secure a share in dream formation, namely, the motive power at the disposal of the repressed wish, but they also offer to the unconscious something that is indispensable to it, namely, the points of attachment necessary for transference. If we wish to penetrate more deeply into the psychic processes, we should have to throw a clearer light on the play of excitations between the preconscious and the unconscious, and indeed the study of the psychoneuroses would impel us to do so. But dreams, as it happens, give us no help in this respect. Just one further remark as to the day residues. There is no doubt that it is really these that disturb our sleep, and not our dreams which, on the contrary, strive to guard our sleep. But we shall return to this point later. End of Section 42. Read for you by Chiquito Crasto, Birmingham, Alabama.